Welcome back, everyone. We're going to be talking about earthquakes. Uh, Recent videos about earthquakes brought to my attention the Turkish earthquake. When I started to watch this, it came to my attention. If we just go ahead and put the whole thing out. If we look around the earth, right? Like, this kind of makes sense. It's not like, whoa, that's crazy that there's earthquakes at this, like, crack thing here. Like, okay. And then, like, through here, that makes sense. Around it, maybe, makes sense. Like, this is a little odd, maybe, but it looks kind of like it approaches, like, a resistance. So maybe there's something of that nature going on. Uh, I mean, I know the Earth fractured this way, and this way, and this way. So, like, all these things kind of make sense, generally speaking. Generally speaking. There's not anything that's like, what in the... Like, this kind of follows the mountain range, okay. There's a lot going on here, that's interesting. At a medium depth, which is really where the vibrations of the Himalayas are. They really go this way, so this is interesting. It almost looks like it actually is like related to the very end of the Tarim Basin here. Okay, let's keep going though. So, like, generally speaking, like, these follow this arc. So there's something of interest. This arc is at a shallow depth here, the earthquakes, and then they get deeper and deeper into the earth to the very boundary here where they occur at the deepest of the earthquakes in the blue, according to the key here, greater than 500 kilometers. I think that's like into the mantle. Upper mantle. So it's reaching the mantle in these blue locations, which is interesting, which is pretty much where these currents flowed, if this map works. All these currents flowed that created the magnetic anomalies of this map. If this works, there's some interesting things I was noticing here. Like, if energy happened to go in to Asia from around here and like go through between this boundary and just kind of propagate this way, then maybe it would funnel through the boundary here and kind of get focused here a bit, and maybe here's Turkey. Maybe you get like really focused to here where it had an earthquake. I don't know. I'm trying to figure out where it might, like, what the current path might have been to cause an earthquake. Also, I found it kind of interesting. This location that I was just pointing to over here generally is antipodal. I don't know where it is antipodal to an earthquake that occurred over here-ish. That was pretty big. I was kind of like, maybe it's possible, because there's also some earthquakes that happen here, and then they kind of follow a trend in dates. Like, I was looking at the dates of earthquakes, like in this region, going across here. So this is actually going above what I was just saying, like this, like up here through this region. It's just not loading. It just doesn't want to load lately. Okay. So, anyway, besides the point, really to the point, most locations kind of make sense. Like this looks like it has a slope in that region in terms of like how the boundaries formed, where the like something of that nature, that things fall and like go down the slope and then tend to create earthquakes down the slope kind of thing. I don't know, something. Same over here where there's just like a general trend here that follows the contours. That's the key. It follows generally the contours. This one makes sense to me because it relates to this flow path that went this way through here. So it has at least some like, okay, where I didn't get like caught up on it here. This is interesting. There's a swarm right, whoa, bunch of them right there. Interesting. Where is that on this? Like here. Let's find it. Let's find it. La-di-da. Maybe I should restart my computer sometimes. Poor thing's gonna die one day suddenly. Okay. Here-ish, right? I'm just kind of curious what the... Here's this thing, so it's up above this segment here. Above this segment here. Let's say around here. I think this is generally accurate. I think I can just... Might be able to just click them. No, whatever. Let's just do it this way. Minus 20.4, 134. So we need 134 minus 20.4 on over here. 134. .4 was it? 20.4, 134.3. Thinking here, okay, 20.4, 134.3, just about right there. Okay, is that what it was? 20.4, 134.3, okay. So around here, which, interestingly, this is the nucleus, but there is an ammonite here that was more of a shell with a nucleus, like just a ring kind of thing, and then current got into the ring and flowed around and basically swirled in causing an ammonite shell. And so that there's earthquakes right there is kind of like, if there's a current maybe coming in this way and flowing around here, maybe it's kind of like pushing in this region, accumulating kind of like turbulence. I don't know, just noticed that little patch there. Let's look around. Do these earthquakes follow the, like, boundaries? Kinda, like they're... It's not the worst. Over here. Not many, not a good... Like this, we can see a pattern. It's very clear as day. Over here, it's a little spotty. Okay, but that's not the point. The reason I started recording was because this is interesting. Because here, like I mentioned previously, this doesn't make any damn sense. This does not make any sense. It is just straight through the middle. It's not parallel with this. Maybe it's kind of parallel here. It does kind of show a relationship where it goes down, seemingly to here, and then bends this way, seemingly to around here, which interestingly is where this structure is. And then it goes down this way in a real straight line. So it has these really straight lines that don't have immediately apparent, distinct, like, relationships, although, like, strongly suggestive because there's a current that was coming in right here that had a boundary here that's related, so that the current that went in this way is related to, like, basically it was going straight, but then it, like, turned enough to, like, push the boundary, like it had a opening, and then it started to turn over this way and just push the boundary to create underneath at a depth to create like an actual boundary that has earthquakes at it now, is my interpretation. And then somewhere along the boundary it like was able to overwhelm it by a different angle to basically flow with it at this angle and produce this boundary. But then down here it was some more so got like running into resistance again and caused it to just go straight down pretty much. But like, okay, so my thought was, well, as I've talked about before, so this Papua New Guinea was spraying through the Solomon Islands here, through the Bird Head here. A current was going through this region into the mouth of underneath South America, as well as down the coast boundary of the batholith of North America, flowing into this region. And so when these currents started to like run into resistance in front of them, they started to waver and wobble kind of thing because they're running into a resistance. So they basically take dividing paths and do this kind of thing, it seems. And maybe cross currents that are influencing the situation that ultimately is playing a part in what that resistance is. Like, it goes initially forward and then it bends off of it and then it becomes a cross current that's overwhelming the current and then leads to vibrations, maybe, I don't know. But generally speaking, the current's coming in here. So immediately I'm like, okay, there's a current coming in this way, generally speaking. Maybe as it moves away, like if this structure is anywhere else, is what I'm thinking. Is there somewhere else that's like matches up to like a puzzle piece, connects in, boom, 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 like same length, same structure, things of that nature. And of course, the only place to look is in this region because that's where it was. So immediately I'm like, okay, a good sign we have this structure here. So that's where we come in now, is I started to just take some pictures. So here, let's go through the layers. Okay, here's the earthquakes on the lines, all the earthquakes. And then I basically, to better find the earthquakes, I drew the line atop, and that's what this is just a line atop. Not the best line because it's a group of lines that I didn't do any editing beforehand, and then I didn't bother to redo once I realized I couldn't really edit them afterwards very well. But here's the line. And so when we remove the earthquakes, the line's still there. Okay. Now we know where that band of earthquakes were, and if just to look at it, I mean, I did my best. Let's get the line out of here. There's like a top there, a bottom there. This is a little low and maybe a little high, so maybe it might be. I don't want to move it. It might be better to move other things. It's fine. It's fine. It's a little high here, a little or a little high here, a little high here, and both sides need maybe a little tweak, but pretty good. Okay, so that's the extent. Maybe I should note that one too, just because of its depth, in case it is relevant. So let's just note that one, maybe even real quick. Draw a line. Oop. Blue. Lovely. I don't know, it should maybe not be a line, but whatever. Okay, so no more earthquakes, but now we can kind of see the map better. And now the thought was, what if I just take this line and kind of like move it around? Is there somewhere I can like put the line most appropriately? So like it basically so where's that spot? Interesting. It basically starts generally here is where I put it, in line with this. In line with this line. Because in order to get this stretch somewhere that had a like straight face, it basically had to be here. Generally from here down this way, across here, and then just as far as it goes. And then, notably, what really made me be like, alright, maybe, is that this, if the current's coming this way, goes this way, and then goes down this way, interestingly, that's where this, like, mouth is of this bay. And you know what's found right here? Hampton, New Zealand. Let's see. Hampton, New Zealand. Maybe this is not the same. Oh, damn, they're down here. Pardon me. Pardon me. I was like, when? They're not there, though. They're not there, though. Something is there for sure. I know there's Cretaceous, like, KT boundary things here. Regardless, there's KT boundary related things going on here, so maybe that's actually relevant. Although it's a little odd, the Meraki boulders would be here. Is that really where they're found? It definitely is. Yeah. Oh, here it is. Whoa. It's just got these. Okay. Well, pardon me. That's not the location that I thought they were. I thought they were up here. I know there's stuff going on. I believe Nelson. I'm not sure if I can find the YouTube channel. Talked about it before. New Zealand geology. That might be enough, honestly. They they're pretty. Yeah, it's this one. Maybe Chatham Island. Let's see where that is. Interesting. So that's over here. Over here, along this arm, which will come into play as we keep going. Along this arm is this thing. Splatter Rock on Chatham Island. Just some of the images of it, the region, but here it is. It just looks like toothpaste or something or like a pine cone. Oh my god. It's a giant pine cone. It's been just scorched. It does look like currents that just kind of sprayed, that were spraying and just kind of fanning out because of the spray in connected like lobes that are just like toothpaste. Okay, so back to this. Let's zoom out a little bit. Check out that line again. So there's that line. Okay. And also that mark. The earthquake occurred. From this map. Not the earthquake there, but the mark from the earthquake. From this map, really. So I just was like, well, maybe we can look around. Like, what could have happened here? Like, could it literally be? That is what I started thinking. Could it literally be that this current from Solomon Islands is flowing over this way, down this way, over this way, down this way, with South America physically just sitting atop it like a baby in the womb, like physically like a bird nesting a child and keeping it like hot underneath, and then it moves away, and the child in this case is the Zealandia, basically. And if that's the case, then if that's the case, then like imagine there's layers, and then like some portion of the bottom layer moves away, but not all of it. Then that would basically cause the portion that moved away to have like a depression from the pressure above that pushes the region down. So there would generally be like a missing topography to the top of the surface. So I was looking like, is there some relationship between the structure of South America and the topography of Zealandia here, of this region? Is there like a similarity where maybe like this is literally maybe I can remove background of this. Nice. Okay. Um, Whoa. Okay, so let's look at this. Notice here, and across here. Okay, let's see. Like this stretch and over. It generally has a boundary here that is not completely unlike this boundary. This arm. I was thinking here, this map doesn't show it much. If we look at, like it's feasible if we look at this section here, right here. That's where the arm was that stretches out. It's down here, across here, down here, across here. It would almost have to be like from here, like across this way. So maybe across this way. This current strongly, it shows like a snake down here with an eye. The mouth here, it's kind of narrow on the side, wide here. Dividing, it's like a current that's going straight and then starts to kind of do like a rattlesnake thing, but it has like a eye, because that's kind of what they do. Like a It seems to be why it did that. And then maybe it was able to just go wider even, like to go out this way and this way. I don't know. Or actually, because there's a current going here, maybe, and that wraps around this way, but maybe cuts across somewhat. Maybe it had turbulence here, especially. And then stabilized when it reached this side. Just flowing beneath the surface and simultaneously ripping the crust apart, maybe, by the process. Just a straight shear. Okay. This one, before I change off of here, kind of has that same potential of like either maybe here, generally across here. This thing, I wonder if there's anything that kind of matches this. Like this hexagon type structure here is probably like a good thing to look for, which is basically should be in this region. So we see a kind of a line there that's maybe it's pretty well placed relative to this. So if we say that's one boundary, then is there some other boundaries? Let's say. Let's see. So here's a boundary. Is that what that was? And pretty much just goes straight down. Just straight down. Those are pretty straight. Like, pretty straight, that stretch. Which is what we would want it to be if it was related to this. Like, that's a good sign. Maybe it's got something here. Let's see if we can find this corner is pretty much along this line and above. Let's see. Like around here. So like this goes across And then just below it here, a wall. Got a triangle formed in this space, and then in some fashion. It's so subtle here. If there's anything to go by. Maybe. Just noticing that's pretty straight and that's pretty straight. And sometimes borders tend to be in some way related to things geographically, but I don't see anything. That's right. What else can we look for? This side? Let's see about this side. This looks more pronounced, maybe. You kind of see something in this map. Not quite in line. But it does have a little there and there kind of thing going on with an even larger maybe width to it. Or like this boundary is related. Here. To here. This line kind of goes down above at the top of this line that I drew. And this kind of looks like maybe there's some aspect of that going on there at this boundary. This just reminds me of the Himalayas, like a vibration in the current, where maybe here it starts like at a depth at flowing into a certain distance, but then at a higher elevation, it's not as much able to, so it's closer to like the coastline, what ended up making the coastline. Like, it could have just sheared the whole way exactly at a 90-degree angle and made this the coastline, but it didn't. It made the coastline significantly different, and the current that influenced the mountains even was different than the current that was at the depths, which is really interesting. It doesn't seem typical, and more something that happens in high energy environments, which is what was happening here when like the Pacific was supernovaing basically. Okay, let's see what else we got. So we got kind of boundaries. Well, I'm just looking at boundaries like here. It also makes me think of like pivot points. Like I noticed this. I didn't point it out. Well, up here, right? Here's Fiji. There's currents that are flowing like this. It's centered just off the coast of Fiji, though. Like over here, at least beneath, at a depth. And so if we look at where that is, it's kind of here. I wonder if Fiji's here below this, then presumably, if it was formed yet at all, like forming at a depth below here. If like there's, my thought was that this was between the continents, like as they opened at that like continent depth began to have material fill in enough to make mounds that just physically opened the space, but maybe the mounds were forming below, and then processes allowed for them to like come to the surface in instances when they were being literally cradled beneath, like here and over here, like literally beneath the crust. But then the crust like moved off and the new layer of continental material was visible, because I was basically forming in the Earth expansion process here. Like Zealandia is post 650 million years old. I wonder if this curve here. It's certainly where the current is flowing even to this day from the Earth expansion process, inducing earthquakes, at least in part. It might be like a two sides of the same coin thing where the current is flowing because the earthquakes are being induced by like dropping materials that then cause the currents to continue to propagate, and then that causes dropping materials to occur and just continue to propagate like transmission of the energy through the crust. And and it flows down the previous paths that it carved out when the Earth was expanding, but it's still kind of flowing there. Like, this is interesting that it has an opening. Like, where is this? Notice where this is. Here's this. Let's see. Earthquakes out to here. Interestingly, not across here, but instead across here. Like, it really went through changes and angles of things. I don't know. That seems kind of silly. Like, the layers one above one another are not the same. So the earthquakes happen over here now, even though the same process formed that thing. I don't know. Also, I notice here, like, it almost, I would like to think that they're swirling here and they kind of get focused in a bowl to the center, which then causes earthquakes. It's like a bowl. Maybe it's colliding here, moving in towards Bermuda, the energy that like pulls in and then reaches the center of the bowl, Bermuda, and then kind of upwells Bermuda itself, but then also leads to like earthquakes generally in the middle of this plate. Okay, so I do think there's potential, like this, for instance, here. This location, if we go back here, is here. Just over this edge here. Oops. Maybe I can just draw a line and then close it. So it's kind of there. Maybe I'll just draw on this layer. Cool. Okay, now. I did not know I could just do what I just did. Interesting. I was like, did I draw over something appropriately, or did I just like force that? Okay, it looks pretty good. We also could maybe go down here a little bit. Let's just do that for lols. Okay. In that case, maybe I should even just see if I go like this. The objective is to draw on one map and have it like work out on the other map. not so good there. These were pretty good. So let's undo these ones. I was just kind of guessing. Let's look at that. Why would that not work, but this one would? This one's certainly pronounced. Whatever's going on here is pretty pronounced. This looks like it should be related. Although if this current's going this way, down here, and is ultimately interacting like this, and then it goes forward here, this kind of makes sense that it would go forward through this way and create this arc. Like it would actually lead into some sort of surface layer arc, potentially, as we saw there. Which also has a Mariana Trench kind of nature to it, where it has the arc with the like arm backwards, but still. In this case, the current's going this way, which so is the Mariana Trench's current, so generally speaking. Okay. Let's keep going back and forth. This is interesting, this right here. It's like a really anomalous feature. Let's just kind of check it out. This tab here, like it goes like this, comes up. Doop. Has a little fractal one on this end too. Like that's odd. Along this coastline. Okay. With that preface, let's see what happens. It's basically right there. Could be kind of related to this region. Wonder if it's like a point where the resistance was able to just turn. Like I feel like it was turning at some points. Like okay, time to turn, but with like a pivot point, some balance point that it turned around. Let's just draw some of this one now. And just see what we can find. This, I don't know if I would say it's directly related. That doesn't make any sense though. It's gotta be closely tied. Let's go like this. And then go like this. Go like this. Some mouth like here. Flowing under. Like a flame across here. see. Let's see. Wondering if this region here is actually a current going this way from Antarctica that then went in here. It definitely went in here through this way underneath the surface here, but maybe as it opened, as the earth expanded, it was like narrowed through this channel. And so is pushing a boundary as it went. So, like, basically the reason I think about that is this, like, indentation here. Makes me think a current went, like, into it. It doesn't really make sense for an indentation to form from this kind of current. Like, it would make more sense if it was, like that. So it makes sense that there's a current generally forming like the mound here that's generally from over here. And that there's a second current that's just pushing its boundary over here, helping create this like boundary line. And in the process, maybe even opening here. Let's see if this has any matching. It does go back to Tasmania. Like, precisely, pretty much. I don't know, like, this formed after. At some point, like, some of it's actually forming between them and not beneath the continent. Although maybe it is really that cool where it forms beneath and then slides off. And forms beneath and slides off kind of stuff. Like a bird. Like a bird hatching. It's... Okay, let's take this one off. This one on. Maybe this one. Wonder. Like, that's interesting here. This corn, that's right, this like presumably inlet channel, I guess, maybe, I don't know. Where the current was able to get to this boundary and like hold it and basically leave a space because of the current holding the boundary that then relented later, so there's just kind of space there, relatively speaking. Is there a relationship? This corner here. So maybe this current went up here and then it physically went atop. I don't know the geography of New Zealand like this to know if there was like a flow that like began because it had nowhere else to go, so it just went up through this pointed region and went like this way. And again, like to this boundary though. Because if it's literally sliding out from beneath it, maybe pushing the surface above enough to not make it like a geo. I think it's called a geo. I've been calling it Goyet. I was like, wait, geo. Why is it geo?
Gyo.
Geo.
Gyo.
Geo. A geo. Geo. It's not like a geo that's flat and smooth from the shearing. Where it's just like a smooth surface. But instead it's more, I mean it is to a degree maybe, but it's really more like this. So like it wasn't completely created like that. If this is what happened, then almost like it was below it and then pushed up and off it without actually needing to slide along it because of a sufficient like activation energy to lift it off of it to expose it. Maybe. So if that's going on, this thing here is a little like what in the, because it really clearly is related to New Zealand. Like this whole stretch is it's clearly related to New Zealand. So it's possible this area formed and then like a current came back this way atop it, like specifically a second current that went atop it that like as it did so it didn't leave behind any evidence of this stretch. Maybe it's even like a wedge that was able to lift South America off because it was shooting into it. Maybe from over here. It looked like it might have been up here, like actually happening. I don't know where this was happening. I thought it was happening like between them. Looks like it was happening like this though, underneath one and adjacent to it. But there's really nothing to make sense of this underneath here. Like if we follow this, utterly nothing. Maybe that there's a point here and like this thing here. Maybe if anything has any resemblance to this. I don't know. It doesn't look like it has any resemblance in a lot of ways. I'm gonna keep looking because I'm pretty sure this is generally what is going on. It's just, I don't know why exactly. Like, how exactly. How exactly? Earthquake at the very end here. Okay. Um, yeah, another thought it occurred to me. It kind of looks like if this is kind of like a spinning axis location, that like a some kind of rotating device turned, but pretty much again where just like a rotating blade, like a rotating blade was here that went down through the layers and cut at a different angle. Something of that nature. Interesting low depth surface layer earthquakes, higher depth, higher still, and then lower depth, and then really low depth, or like shallow depth, and then really deep earthquakes in the blue again. That it goes like down, back up, and then really down. I wonder if it's like an inverse Mariana Trench. Or like a Mariana Trench. Pretty much like a some kind of thing, like a channel that has like support up here that's kind of falling down at the tops on the sides, and then bows down, so it, like the stuff falling down is bowed down already at the middle, so it tends to have deeper earthquakes here, something of that nature, even though it's the mountains are not quite that relevant to the earthquakes, it seems. Like they are present, but they're not driving the earthquakes per se. For instance, just here. All right, see y'all next time.